This is Keith Fraser for Seconds Out TV. We're here with Glenn McCrory at the press conference of David Haye, Tony Bellew too. Glenn, great to see you.
Thanks, very, very good to be here.
Well, I have to say that I'm actually gutted that you're not on Sky Sports these days. Tell us what you're up to.
I work with an internet company called Boxing Social, do a bit of writing as well, and I'm a professional trainer. Got a gym in Ireland, trained a couple of fighters over there, and I'm loving that side of the game, which is pretty much where I want to be. But you know, it's all good.
So listen, you were a former cruiserweight. You got two fighters here who really are natural cruiserweights, really. How do you see this fight going? I mean, were you at all surprised by the result of the first fight, and what do you see happening in the second?
I was surprised by the result of the first fight. I think, I think everybody expected a lot more. As soon as I saw David in the ring, as soon as the bell went, he changed his stance, and he had a big wide stance, which I thought, whoa, something's wrong here. And I for one, I know people say different, but I for one thought he carried an injury into the ring with him. And I think that was key. On looking at the fight, Tony Bellew did terrifically well, and David was stretching and reaching and missing, and Tony Bellew stayed there, did what he does, and won the fight. And if I look back at it, I think that was great. That was great what he did. But now you've got, coming into the second fight, you've got to say, okay, what was, analyze the two fighters, and you've got David Haye straight away. I look at him and he looks a lot thinner, a lot leaner, so he's obviously thinking, right, I did a mistake. First mistake, I was too heavy, so he's come down in weight. But you've got to say, how many times has David Haye fought recently? How many times has he pulled out with injury over the last 5 or 6 years? It's 5 fights, it's 5 years since he fought Derek Chisora in his last meaningful fight. It's 7 years since he was great destroying Audley Harrison. It's a long time, and he's been very inactive. And your body starts to seize up. You don't have the same mobility as you had when you were an athlete. Tony Bellew, he's had regular fights. This will be his second fight this year. He had 2 fights last year. He had 3 fights in 2015. He had 3 fights the year before. So he's kept workingly active. And like any athlete, footballers, if they have layoffs, they're going to start pulling hamstrings. And that's the same in boxing. As soon as you get in there with a big crowd, the adrenaline all goes. You push your body, you try and get the most out of it, and your body at 36, 37, probably when he goes in the ring, will give up.
See, from what you're saying, you kind of see it as Tony Bellew winning again.
I think we've seen the fight. I think we don't want to disappoint him, but I think we've seen the fight. I wonder the same two guys at the same age, 8 months later or whatever it is, what can they do different to change the fight? And Tony will be there. The one thing I know is he'll be in super condition this time. David, obviously, I think he thought it was going to be fairly easy last time. This time, you can tell straight away he's down to business. He's gonna do the best he can, train and everything. He's gonna cut no corners this time. But the body's still the same. It's the same thing he's working with. And I just think when it gets hard, when the bell rings, when the adrenaline starts, that's when it's gonna get difficult again.
One thing that I said to David just now in interviewing David for Seconds Out was that obviously he had a terrible Achilles tendon injury. Now you're obviously in it.
Did you have that before the fight?
I should have done. I should have consulted with you before, Glenn. I'm very sorry, but you've got the Sky Sports experience. But the truth of the matter is, as I said to him, it's likely that Tony Bellew hasn't actually faced David Haye's true punch power because he's not had that kind of leverage with that right foot because of the Achilles. So surely that could be something which could come into the second fight.
Of course it could. If the one thing David Haye until he's 85 years of age won't lose, if his balance is right and his footwork's right and he throws a good swing, he'll be able to knock somebody out. That won't change. The fact of getting your balance right, getting in a position to land a punch, that takes technique and that takes time and that takes, is that going to happen? He couldn't do it last time, so why will he do it this time? So that's the question. Great, David, he's a pal, I've known him a long time and he's a great competitor. and I'm sure he's learned some valuable lessons, and he'll be trying his very, very best. You could see on the stage that he was hurt, and I think that defeat has really, really hurt him. And as emotionally, his ego, everything else, that's a tough pill to swallow at your age when you've done so much in a fight that you thought was going to be an easy fight. So he's got to he's going to try and regroup. He's going to try and do everything he possibly can. Can he be a 100% better David? If he can, he wins the fight.
Well, that's what makes the fight so exciting, and that's why everyone wants to see the rematch. Glenn, it's been great to see you. Nice to talk to you, of course. And if Sky Sports, I should say, watching this interview, I want this man back behind the canvas.